Actually, I believe in being very well-rounded. Right before I came to high school, I was big into summer camps and theater and things like that. I received my black belt in Taekwondo. I did, honors and AP and SATs and ACTs and SOLs and PALSs and everything else we had to do to get here to a school. I also played in several orchestras until I realized that my singing voice was much better than my violin playing. And I got the musical theater bug completely by the end of high school, so I decided to super practically major in it. And my parents can't beat me up too bad because I did still study, religion, philosophy, poetry, accents, dialects, music, of course. And as far as being a triple threat, I will tell you, I can sing, I can act, and I can beat you up. As far as dancing, if you've ever seen the hippo in Fantasia, I'm going to teach you a big life lesson right now, and you can take it with you forever. It's my big secret. If you commit 100%, no one will question you. So just take that with you forever. After school, I worked at the International Spy Museum. I've also done some web development for government contractors. I have done some acting. I've done some voiceover work. I started a podcast. And most recently, I've started training people to become audio describers for media for the blind. And I tell you all these things first because I want you to know that I am all of those things before I am visually impaired or blind. Just like most people with disabilities, I am a person first. So if you see somebody in a wheelchair and they have a companion with them and you are talking to them and you only look at the person who is with the person in the wheelchair, you can look at the person who's in the wheelchair. If you're talking to someone who is deaf and there's an interpreter, don't just look at the interpreter because you're actually talking to the deaf person. And as far as being visually impaired, it is something that is actually very common. A lot of people, I think, with disabilities and without don't realize how common visual impairment is. A lot of people need glasses. A lot of people, if you didn't have correction, would have a lot of trouble seeing. And if you live long enough, you all will be visually impaired. So it's quite a common situation. And a lot of people don't realize that only 2% of people who are visually impaired are congenitally blind, which means they've never seen, ever. So only 2% of people have never seen, which means the rest of us are either losing your vision over time or you've lost it because of an accident or an illness. So we have a sight reference point. And when you see the cane and the sunglasses, your brain is automatically socialized to be like, oh, that person's blind, so close your eyes, that's what they're seeing. And it's not true most of the time. For instance, my vision, I have a retina disease called cone rod dystrophy, which nobody knows a lot about, unfortunately. It's a very rare condition, normally stuff with your retina or your macula in your eye. Stays with you until you get, 50s, 60s. A lot of people will get macular degeneration or other eye problems that glasses won't help with. It's not correctable. But I started losing my vision in high school. So they were just like, what is this space person? And so it's been quite a journey. And I started just realizing that we're not taught anything about people with disabilities. We're not educated. There's not any part of your health class in high school or anything that covers really anything about people with disabilities. And we're just people. We're not here to be inherently inspirational. That's not why we exist. And as far as disabilities in general, there's a lot of people with invisible disabilities. And what I mean by that is me standing up here right now, not a lot of people would go, she's a blind woman. Somebody with MS often you have no idea. Somebody with autism can sometimes, on the spectrum, you would have no idea in an interaction with them. And if you completely think about, super invisible disabilities like depression, anxiety, those are, mental illnesses that people really struggle with, and it's a disability. And, talking slower and louder to us is not going to help. Any kind of invisible disability, physical disability, there aren't many circumstances in your life where talking slower and louder will do anything. It really doesn't normally help. And as far as people with physical disabilities versus invisible ones, we know what we look like. So I realize that I'm blind. People realize they can't hear. People realize they have no arms. We realize, what the deal is. So I challenge you to take people as people and take them as who they are. So if you encounter somebody, you don't have to stare, and you don't have to look away awkwardly, and you don't have to stop talking and awkwardly analyze the situation. If you are curious, you can totally greet the person, say hello, and ask. If somebody bites your head off, just realize that maybe they're having a bad day, or they might not want to talk about their condition, but it's only one person. The problem with disabilities is that we're rare enough that you don't come into contact with us really unless you have a family member, a friend, or sometimes in college, high school, you'll come across somebody with a disability. But let's say you have an interaction with someone with a developmental disability and it's a really negative experience. You most likely won't try and interact with those people again because it colors your perception of people with disabilities. So it's the concept called generalization, where you have, you generalize somebody based on one particular experience. So if you meet a blind person and you have a negative experience, it's going to color psychologically your view of blind people. And it's something that you can't really stop. You can't really stop assumptions. When you first meet somebody, you kind of assume, especially visually, you kind of assume a lot of things about them. And whether you act on that or not, it automatically comes to mind. We're taught to judge our surroundings. And who doesn't love a good judging? I mean, did you see what he was wearing? She's doing the ombre thing. With her hair, she's doing the ombre thing. So it's one of those things where we are just people and you can ask. I had recently a gentleman on a bus that I ride sometimes. He was an older gentleman, and he had apparently seen me several times on the bus, and he tapped my shoulder one day and he said, I just want you to know that I think that you get around very well. And I said, well, thank you very much. How are you? And he was shocked because he had had an interaction where he said, I tried to help a blind man and he bit my head off. And I said, try and keep it in perspective. Maybe you were the 10th person who asked him. Maybe he was having a bad day, or maybe he just knows how to do things his way and he's got to do it that way. So it's really about taking people as just people. So let's say you've got demographics. You're trying to target a particular audience. So you're like, okay, well, we got to market this thing. Let's market it to women, to men, to the LGBTQ community. Let's market to people with disabilities. Ooh, there's a thought. You could sell us stuff. It's not very accessible right now. How many commercials are just like, and I'm like, I might want to buy that. No idea what that was. It's either a cell phone, a car, or pads. I don't know, but I'm ready. So there is a whole market out there. The problem is you generalize us in a way that isn't a diverse group of people to market to. It is people with disabilities, these space people. We don't know how best to reach them. And just like with any other, marketing ploy, you're not going to be able to get everybody to buy it, but you certainly can market to people with disabilities. Makes sense. So I've talked about a couple things so far. One is people with disabilities are not here to be inherently inspirational. We're not just inspirational because we're disabled. I'm inspirational because of the things I have done, despite the fact that I have a disability. Secondly is don't assume anything. If you do meet any human being and you have an assumption about them, whether it's they have blue hair or they are disabled or they are of another race, if you have the thought, you're allowed to totally have the thought of like, oh, I'm going to assume things about them because they're wearing a baseball hat. They must like that baseball team. They must be from that state. And your brain does that thing. But then I challenge you to ask yourself why. Why did I have that thought? And let me start from a clean slate. And the other thing that I really want to convey to you guys is that life is hard. And when you graduate into the world, or you're a professor and you're teaching, or it doesn't matter, as you move forward in your life, there are challenges you can't plan for. You can't plan for everything. The thing that you didn't plan for is what will happen. So, I wasn't banking on being visually impaired. I wasn't like, all right, I'm gonna take this in stride and just, it's gonna be great. Because you can practically prepare for something. When doctors look at you and they're like, we don't know, you can go to Hopkins. We want to study you like a little guinea pig. You can go to Hopkins and you can do all that stuff, but you can practically prepare. I can learn Braille, I can get large print, I can do assistive technology so I can graduate from school, I can learn how to use a cane. But you can't emotionally prepare for something like losing an essential human sense. It's not something you can emotionally prepare for. And that's similar to any challenge in life. I mean, you are going to run into really bad times where all you want to do is give up or go back to school where you can base your self-worth on your grades and your dissertation. In life, you're not going to be able to pause. There's no like, okay, I need to catch up life. Let me just pause and put everything on hold, deal with this one issue. It keeps rolling. And it's not that it's bravery being disabled. It's that you get up every day and you deal with what you're dealt. And as you move forward in your life and you come across challenges, whether it be a disability or a job or you're broke or you break up with somebody, reach that challenge when you get there. Don't try and plan for all the 50 things that will happen. Be responsible, think ahead, have a plan, but know that you are going to hit challenges and deal with the challenges then, as they present themselves. Because I know people who have overcome incredible things because you will surprise yourself in your life. You will seriously surprise yourself how strong you are. And as we all eat here together, if you put your problems that you have in your life out on the table, we all put our problems out, you would pick yours right back up because you have no idea what other people are dealing with. And life is about obstacles and achievements and relationships and discoveries, and it's many of those things. And people tell you, oh, high school is the best days of your life. That was the best time. Oh, college, that was the best time in my life. If that's true, I'm horrified. Because, no. So as I move forward, I was determined to just say, you know what, any day can be the best day of my life. Any year can be the best year of my life. It's just that when you reach an obstacle, when you have a challenge, you tackle it then, you deal with it then, and you keep going. And really that's what life is about, whether you're disabled or not. We are all just people. I love a quote from Yoda when he's talking to Luke. He says, there is no big, no small, there just is. So thank you all very much for listening. And, I want you to know that no matter what happens in your life, you are not alone. And I believe in you. And I believe in people. I believe in the things that we can overcome, because we can seriously learn the most from each other's resilience. Seriously. So, thank you.